And it's a very good morning to Domain Managing Editor Alice Stolz. Alice, can you tell us who qualifies for the first home buyer scheme?
So this is the scheme that was rolled out this year by the federal government in a bid to try to give basically first home buyers a chance to get into the market sooner than having to save for a 20% deposit. So you have to be a first home buyer, you have to earn no more than $125,000 if you're single, and if you're a couple, no more than $200,000. There is no limit on age.
Okay.
And what about the price caps? I mean, what's available at those levels in the different capital cities?
So the government set what allows people to buy a modest property in each city. So for Sydney, the cap is $700,000. So the property type has to be under $700,000.
Okay, so this is just to get people into the market and started on their homeowner journey. So you can see there's different caps across the capitals.
Exactly. So we can see, as I said, in Sydney it's $700,000, in Melbourne the cap is $600,000, and in Brisbane it's $475,000. So I think when this rolled out, people thought the government might be a bit sort of aggressive in where they were setting it, but you can actually buy a modest property in those capital cities.
And a pretty decent percentage of the properties are apparently within that level. We're looking at almost a third in some cities falling into that sort of area.
That's exactly right. And so in Sydney, 36% of property on the market is available in under that price cap.
Okay, so let's have a look where in Sydney those properties fall. So we've got to be under $700,000. Where can I buy a property for that?
So the suburb with the most available stock is Mount Druitt, the area around that region there. So you can see that it's got 87% of properties in that area fall under that price cap.
Okay, but you can also go to the Central Coast around Wyong, and then you've got Richmond and Windsor, which is sort of out in the more rural area as well. So we're covering a fair bit of the city there,
That's
different
right.
lifestyles.
And I think what I like about particularly the Sydney region is that there are different areas you can go to. You're not just being sort of channeled to one particular suburb. You can have a different lifestyle in different areas of Sydney.
It's interesting. So this is the Mount Druitt house. This is the kind of opportunity that you might have if you're looking in that area. And essentially what you're saying is that that's the richest pickings area. I mean, you might be able to get someone in the city, some place that falls within that area, but so many places in Mount Druitt.
So I think it's important that first-time buyers will explore different regions that they're attracted to. So, you know, if you really want to sort of really sift through everything, you might have an area like in Richmond, for example. There's obviously less stock available, but there is still opportunities there for first-time buyers.
Well, let's talk about Melbourne, because the $600,000, that was the limit that you said there. Can you take us through some of the areas in Melbourne where first-time buyers might be looking?
Yeah, so it's the Broadmeadows and it's the Broadmeadows region of Melbourne and the Tullamarine area, and also Melton and Bacchus Marsh, Sunbury, Wynnum and Cardinia. So again, you've got a bit more variety, but not as much as the Sydney area, curiously.
Okay, let's think about that too. It's about setting yourself up. So probably better if you don't have kids, I guess, to get into those areas and then maybe grow your portfolio and move closer in when that time comes. Or if you've already got kids, you know, think about changing your lifestyle a little bit just to get into the market.
That's right. And the whole point of this was the government trying to help people take that shortcut to get into the market sooner rather than having to save for a 20% deposit. So I think it is about making compromises for first home buyers who are really motivated to buy a property sooner rather than later.
And if you're watching this show, you probably are, aren't you? All right. Now to Brizzy. The threshold there is $475,000, which obviously a lot less than Melbourne and Sydney. What do you get and where do you get it in Brisbane?
It's interesting. And before we go into that, Brisbane is the area with the most of stock available in that price point. So it's sort of winning the stakes over here.
Where would you go? What suburbs have we got in Brisbane?
So in Beenleigh, it's 83.7% of stock available under that price cap. And there are very different areas around the Brisbane area, and you can see that first home buyers have so much choice in Brisbane compared to the other markets, basically.
And some high percentages there, Chris.
Absolutely. I mean, you really can see that those are the areas where it's the richest pickings, where people kind of are going to be looking. And it is, of course, worth mentioning that these price caps, they're different in regional areas. So in places like Brisbane, you really do have to do your research. So this is why this is really important. So you actually have a roadmap ahead of you.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is a home in Beenleigh. So this is between the Brisbane Gold Coast corridor.
Yep.
So you've got the choice, I guess, of working between the two there.
And what's interesting, look at the property. Like, this is quite an amazing property, you know, in this price bracket for a first home buyer. You know, when you think about what Eddie was saying about the compromises he's made along the way, I think a lot of first home buyers would be quite enamoured by a property like this.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
Well, it's much bigger than they would have been thinking of somewhere closer to the city. It's got a garage. It's, you know, it's multiple bedrooms.
That's exactly right.
It's really interesting because as well with this first home, home loan deposit scheme, a lot of the time you can lay it on top of a grant from the government or a stamp duty discount or concession. So it's really an interesting thing to be looking at.
People are getting quite creative with it, and I think that's why we've seen the age bracket of people who are buying these properties is actually not just millennials or people in their 20s. It is actually so even people who are 40 plus are getting onto this as well.
That's it. You've given us a lot of information there and a lot of areas to look at. I think when people are out house hunting today, maybe just spread your wings a little bit wider and just take a look. You're not committing. It's okay.
And with this scheme, we don't know how long it's going to be around for. There's another 10,000 options being rolled out July 1 this year, and the government may continue with it. We're not sure of that, but it has been very popular to date.
Thank you. I think that's given people a lot to think about.